Go on with it, go on with it. Blessings all for my life, man. My thank God for the journey, the earnings, and just for the plus. Gratitude is a must. Blessings fall by my right hand.
The world needs you. Remember.
Hi guys, this is your favorite mystic, TheSirenSayz. Welcome back to my commentary channel where I speak about movie, TV, and soon to come books. And everything that I like and dislike, and the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything all throughout and in between those frames of media. Disclaimers. This is going to be a series of videos. I wanted to drop one video, whether it be big or small, on my thoughts, because I was worried that if I drop too many videos, there's going to be too many comments, and I was worried, because this community can be really, they don't really want to hear other opinions, and I get why. But you know what? I don't care. I'm going to say what I want to say. You agree or don't agree, whatever. Right now, I just want to talk about my thoughts as they come. So there's going to be a series of videos about my thoughts as they come. These are about comments that I've seen versus what I actually believe that I may have forgot to put in a video that you guys will see at the end of this series. Now, I have not watched anybody's videos about their thoughts because I do not want to have any contamination. I just want my raw thoughts out there. So we're just going to discuss that right now. Okay? So, also disclaimers, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to the people who are involved. I'm just going to discuss what I like, did not like, or what I think could have been done better. We all have thoughts, okay? We all have thoughts. So I don't want to see then how about you do it down below? Stop. We all have a thought that if we were a PA in production and we told somebody and they listened to us, it probably could have saved certain shows a lot of headache. If they had a PA that thought like we, the audience, do. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say on that. But yeah, I was scared. Now I'm not. I feel like this show has a problem, and we're gonna discuss what the problem is. What I will say about this show is that it's not as bad to me as other things that are Avatar related that are not the original show. Yes, that's a very wide generalization of a lot of stuff that is Avatar related. You take your pick what I could be talking about. Anyways, let's talk about Azula, because I want to talk about Azula in the first episode. Let's do that, okay? So, a lot of people have a lot to say about Azula's actress, about the way she was portrayed, and all of that. Let me get into my thoughts. Number one, I ain't got an issue with her actress. I know some of y'all are talking about she too chubby to be Azula. I'm not playing with y'all. I'm not playing with y'all at all. Why does that matter? She's a child. I think one thing you guys need to remember is that a lot of times, in anime, they make, 15 to 10-year-olds look like they're like 14 to 18-year-olds. And that's the youngest they'll make them. That's like the oldest they'll make them. 18. Okay? So, they made Aang look a little taller in certain scenes, lankier than he actually is. They made Katara look a little bit more womanly. They made Sokka tall. They made Zuko look like he was 18. They made Mei look like she was 21. They made Ty Lee look like she was a fun, perky 19-year-old. And they made Azula look like she was 20. But Azula's young. Okay? She's really young. She's a baby. Now, this has nothing to do with how she was portrayed. I'm just talking about how she looks and how sometimes we as the audience can just get kind of befuddled by what we saw and what some of us liked versus what we're seeing now. I'm not gonna get on how the actors look. They can't help that. And to be honest, if Avatar was real, they would look like this. Sure, you could say they're skinnier actresses, whatever. Let's wait till season 2 when Azula really shines just to see what's going on. Yes, I'm planning to watch season 2, but don't take that into account as to what I thought about the show. I'm deciding to give it a chance. I'm deciding that I'm going to give it a chance, and season 2 is the last chance this thing's going to get. Now, let's get into her portrayal. I will admit, I didn't like it at first. I think the ending, her being the one to take over Omashu, it's fine. Originally in the show, Aang and them come back to Omashu, and they're just like, oh my god, it's just randomly taken over. And May's family is sort of ruling over the place, but you can see that they're just diplomats. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are the ones that took over the place. It just means that they are now the political heads of the place. Like, you can have like a general come in and bust down a place, and then have like the figureheads come in, or the politicians come in and rule it after. That's plausible, no problem. But in the show, they decided to give us an answer of, okay, this place was taken over by Azula. We'll see if May's family is still ruling over it. We're not sure. But if May's family is still ruling over it by season 2, it's not a big change there. I don't mind it. I kind of liked it. I liked it. I wish I had seen it, but I guess they were trying not to show too much of Azula. But unfortunately, guys, you still showed a little too much, because now a lot of people have a lot of thoughts that some of which I'm sure you did not want them to have. I'm sure you did not think that they would have had such negative opinions on Azula based off what you showed them. You were hoping that they would just have been excited to see her and have been happy to get some lore drops here and there, and maybe even get some backstory into why she is the way she is. This is one thing I'll say about the show. I could see why they thought that a lot of the changes and decisions that they made would have went well. However, a lot of those changes did not go well, and I'm going to discuss that in this series, but I'm not going to make this long. I'm going to make this at least 10 minutes. I did not like the way Ozai was with her. Now, I know by the end, I guess the explanation is that Ozai was just being tough on her to test her, and he already knows that she's the best. He was just like using this fake admiration for Zuko to fuel her. And I'm not going to say that that's an impossible thing and that that's not something that could have been a part of the original. Because one thing this show has tried to do, and it has done it well in at least 3 instances that I can think of, is that they tried to take something that was mentioned in the show, and then they expanded the lore in the live action to say, this is why this. And they did it very well 3 different times. So I could see why they thought, well, we're just expanding Azula's lore. But you don't really have to. You don't really have to. She gets her lore expanded after we see her for the first time. After she tricks Zuko. After she goes after the Avatar. We don't necessarily need to know too much about that. We get some backstory of her when we get to see Zuko in Zuko Alone. Right? We get that. And you know, we also get to see some backstory of her going further. We get to see that she might not have been the nicest person when we see her smiling during Zuko's, Agni Kai with Ozai. We get to see that. You know what I mean? So I feel like I understand what you were trying to do, and I'm not going to say it was a bad idea, but I don't think it was executed very well. The idea of giving Azula backstory. Now, I'm not going to sit here and argue whether or not she deserves redemption. I have said before in previous videos, I will link them down below, that I think Azula is a wild card character. She could get a redemption or she couldn't. The reason why I feel that way is because one of the original head writers for the show, Aaron Ehasz, actually wanted to give Azula a redemption if they got season 4, but Brian and Mike was like, no. But then, of course, even though they said no to him and made him look crazy on Twitter, they decided to go back and now do a comic book with Azula's possible redemption. You see, Brian and Mike are a little shady for me, but that's a whole nother video. Now, I don't care if she's going to get a redemption. I don't care if they're doing this to show a redemption. Doesn't really matter for me. All it's really showing is that Ozai is not a good parent, which, of course, we knew that. We knew he wasn't a good dad. But, sorry if you heard my dog Luna. You'll be hearing the ambient noises of barks. It's raining, so she wanted to come inside. We just brought her in. But, as it pertains to Ozai, I feel like there was this weird humanization of him. And we can have the discussion down below if villains deserve to be humanized. I, for one, am fatigued with villain humanization. I feel like within the last 10 years, media, especially movies, have been trying really hard to humanize 80 to 90% of all villainous characters on TV, like they want everybody to be Zuko so bad. I'm like, come on now. Now, there is the excuse with like some comic book characters where like they were always sort of anti-hero-ish, so it's not like an agenda. It was in the comics, it was in the source material, but it's never done to the level of Zuko. It's never done well enough that I'm just like, okay, fine, I'll accept it. It just always seems like a trend because it's not done well, and that's what happens when you do something that has already been done and you don't do it well. You just make it seem like you're doing it because people liked it in this movie, let me do it here. No, guys, why did they like it here? Why did they like the idea of Zuko being redeemed? Can Azula be redeemed, right? Are you gonna follow Aaron Ehas's formula of Azula being redeemed? So I'm just gonna tell you guys a little bit of what Aaron Ehas said on Twitter that he was planning to do. If you want to know exactly what he said, look in the videos down below. I have his tweets in the video. But what Aaron was planning to do, which made sense to me, and he's a very good writer, is that he wasn't going to make it as quick as Zuko's. And Zuko's wasn't exactly quick, but he said he was going to make hers twice as long, right? Zuko would be involved because obviously he has a soft spot for her, which we all know he does. We don't know why he has a soft spot for her, but he does. He's a good brother. And he was going to make it a journey. She was going to mess up a lot, but she was always going to have Zuko there. Zuko was going to be her Iroh. And I like that because it shows that Zuko would have learned a lot from Iroh to be an Iroh for somebody else. Now, that's just draft. That's just baseline where nothing specific. But I think that if you're going to do it, that's a nice baseline to have to build an arc off of. You still have to build it. You can't just use what I just said as like a whole through point. You can't do that. You still have to build it. You have to add some more stuff, you know? And that's what Brian and Mike does sometimes as well. They have a great draft, but you need to build on it. And that's the issue with Legend of Korra. A lot of great drafts that were not built up properly. And so people argue over whether or not the idea of what happened in some of these seasons were good versus whether or not they were actually built up properly. That's all I'm going to say on that. I feel like this live action had that issue a little bit as well. That's why I'm not going to sit here and have the argument about whether or not Brian and Mike should have came back. We would have had similar issues, guys. You saw in my very last Avatar video before this one, right? That Brian and Mike, allegedly, the lady said she was very credible, but I've been knowing this about them, that Brian and Mike were going to change character. The way that some of these characters are, they're going to change it, and they were going to change lore, not update, not add, change. So please don't come in my comments about if Brian and Mike stayed. No, guys. If you're one of the people that think that this was bad or not necessary, imagine how unnecessary it would have been if the actual creators came and desecrated their own work. How about we just thank God that they weren't completely a part of this? Obviously, they were a part of it. You saw their names at the end of almost every episode because they were actually involved in season 1 until they left. So, let's just have that, cut that out of the way. But as it pertains to Azula, I don't necessarily like the way Ozai treated her, but I'm going to see what's going on in season 2 to get full context on it, because obviously she's not a main character until season 2. One thing I will say that I did bring up, she actually did have one of my favorite scenes, so that's a good sign. Azula is a great character. I loved seeing her interact with Mai and Ty Lee, because it just gave very much like the cartoon. You know, the way they're interacting. I know some people don't necessarily like on the person who plays Mai or the person who plays Ty Lee. Give it time. Give it time. We'll see. And I'm trying to be as nice as I possibly can. That's why I'm trying to give them grace and I'm trying to give them time. But yeah. So please let me know what you think about everything that I said, all the questions I brought up, all the thoughts I brought up. What did you think? I don't want to hear nothing about Brian and Mike would have done better in the comments because they made Legend of Korra, and in my opinion, that's not better. That's just pretty. And this live action also managed to give us pretty. So they're on the same level, low-key. They're at the same level. Let's just talk about what we got, what could have been done better, or what we already liked and did not need to be done better in any way, okay? Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye, my sires. Susu.